Let's open up this meeting of the Whately Finance Committee and
Let's open the meeting with the Whately Selectboard.
okay, we're all together, we're here. And tonight we have an agenda where we will have the South County Senior Center, the Highway Department, Police Department, and Water Department. So without further ado, I see that we have South County here. How you doing?
You want to review the minutes?
Oh, yeah.
The minutes?
JD, are you ready?
I'm good, yeah.
I was waiting for JD.
I'm good.
I was ready to go.
I make a motion.
Second.
We have a second? Okay, all those in favor, JD?
Aye.
Okay, Ruth?
Aye.
Aye. He wasn't here, shall abstain, aye. Aye,
Aye.
okay,
And the select board, I move that we approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
okay. So now, let's get into the agenda. South County, come on up.
Well, you don't have a
Stay-
table,
stay-
so
stay
I'm
right
gonna stay
here.
here.
I know. We really should have.
It's okay. Like, all the other towns have one, but I. Oh, we not know.
Yeah, don't do that.
It's all right.
Bring over the podium and do
Oh, no, I don't need a stamp today. I'm happy sitting. It was a very busy day. Hello, this is my
Sure.
fourth budget meeting in front of all of you folks, and I have data as always. One of your finance committee members was at our community forum, and you asked a really good question pertaining to percentages and things like that. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you as you're looking at our budget, and hopefully, I know I sent it last minute, just handed it to everyone, the budget, or the memo in support of my budget. Just gives you some statistical data as to where we were a couple of years ago to where we are now. When we had our community forum, we talked about active members, where Whately up until February of this year has 59 active members. We have about 80 total members, but only 59 are truly active, regularly coming to center.
80 from Whately?
Or excuse me, 15, there's a total of 80 members from Whately, but about 59 are truly active since July 1st of 2024 through February 5th of 2025. I did it based on that data there. We've also with the senior center, in the past 3 years that I've been the director, we went from having about 262 active members to 671 active members now. New members over the last 3 years, we went from 105 individuals over 3 years to 2019 to 2021 to now new from 2022 to 25, 438 new members during that time frame. 150 of those members live in Sunderland, 342 live in Deerfield, 59 live in Whately, and 120 live in surrounding communities. So Mr. Barron had asked a good question about getting monies returned from the other towns for those who participate. However, our seniors also go senior center hopping. So that would kind of be ineffective because then they'd be asking for money from us for our seniors going to other centers.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Because my original question was based on the fact that Whately has 9% of its population are seniors. 9% of the membership is Whately. We're being charged 25%. Sunderland has 25% of its population are seniors, and they have a 25% fee. Deerfield has 20%. 20, is that right? No, 50%.
All
They
the
think
numbers sound
50%.
low. 9, is more than 9%.
59, no, so 10% of the Whately seniors, they're 544 out of 3,027.
So 500.
Actually,
544 of those who reside in Whately are older adults, 60 and
Correct.
over. That was one of the statistics I gave you before. But just to let you know,
It's 18.
for usage for Whately of your members who are active,
43 times.
for current fiscal year 25, out of 39 members who regularly attend, they've been 1,243 times.
Right, so
Or,
my question was, if I could finish, please.
sure,
And I understand there's a cost sharing agreement between the three towns, and I think Fred has an interesting point. Should be going out to the other communities, but at a minimum, I would think you'd spread the burden. Because right now, if Whately only has 9% of the active members, but it's paying for 25% of the cost, and this would be really important when we get to the potential loan concept. Why not reapportion between the three towns so that the Deerfield people pay a little more, the Sunderland people pay a little more, and the Whately people don't have to pay as much?
the intermunicipal agreement that was formed was created in 2010.
Yep.
The Board of Oversight and myself have been working as to what we're going to do moving forward. So if that concern is your concern, you need to share it with your select board because they're the ones who would determine how that would move forward.
That's why I'm raising it in the
But the
forum
other
tonight, but also
question,
for the finance committee.
but the other question or the other response I have to that is talking about usage in comparison to the other towns. So you have for fiscal year 2024, for example, you had 36 active seniors from Whately come 1,650 times, where the other town, sorry, I'm just getting to the information here. For the other town's usage, there's, sorry. For South Deer, or for Deerfield, out of, they had 246 people come 5,885 times. So you could break it down based on usage moving forward. However, when the IMA was established in 2010, that was not the intent at the time. It was because I'm going to ask you a question, coming back to a portion percentage wise for usage, does Whately have the separate funding to open their own senior center and offer all the services that we do offer? Because prior to my coming on board in 2022, all the towns had a total of active membership of only 242 people. In fiscal 23, we had 17 new members come in from Whately, fiscal 24, 18 new members, and fiscal 25, 13.
I think the more important question, and share with me for just a moment, is that Whately is subsidizing the surrounding communities relative to its percentage of active members. If that's what the town wants to do,
Well,
that's appropriate.
can I address that? a little bit? I'm the select board member who's on the Board of Oversight. Started a couple of years back. And we inherited this memorandum of understanding, and that's where the 25, 25, 50 came from. It was intended to be simple, and it was actually closer to the percentages at that
At the
time.
time.
And so we've been discussing different changes that we might either make to the MOU or ultimately to the structure of how the senior center is. Should it be its own district? Should it be consortium? There's some other structures that we're considering that might help us moving forward if we were to try to get a loan to try and build a senior center, that sort of thing. But that is one of the things that I have consistently brought up, that what we need to do is something more like the way Frontier does it, look at a 5-year average of membership. Now, the data we have is really only since Jen has been on board. One more year and we will be having 5-year running averages that we have reliable data for. So this was made, the original 50, 25, 25 was made in the absence of better data.
Makes sense.
And so that, yeah, it is something that the Board of Oversight has been discussing, and we're working that into the discussion of how do we change our MOU to get to where we want to be.
Right, and I realize it may be some time out, but what really caught my attention with that was the presentation on the loan for the new senior
Exactly.
center, which is, let's call it multi-million-dollar.
Yes,
And
yeah,
25% means that's a $250,000
yeah.
haircut
Hmm.
to your available funds for the town. Could be more, because I don't think the the loan payment at 3% didn't really make sense to me. So the calc at $1 million is probably insufficient. Before you absorb a $500,000 increase, I'm just putting it out there.
And it also assumes construction costs at current levels.
Correct, which may not be.
Which is false.
It's not,
I don't know that we're gonna-
not a good sum.
We're not gonna touch on it, but I couldn't
Right.
find a better
You're right.
form to express my thoughts.
Just to clarify, that $1 million is that annual payment over the 20 years.
Annual payment over 20 years,
Yeah, based on the percentages.
1 million per year, or
1 million per year
Because I
overall,
believe
of
the
which
appropriate-
Whately share is 4.
Divided by
The appropriate assessment is, for the
per year.
total amount was around 10 million
Per-
In
total
the
for
aggregate, not just for Whately.
Yeah.
the percentage for Deerfield was over 10 million. The proportions percentage based on the current IMA standards
Right.
would be 25% for Sunderland and for Whately. So it was the $3.75 million or somewhere around there, totaling that amount. The different columns were the tax assessment based on what that particular detail was on that sheet. You folks don't have it. It was at the community forum. All of that information is going to be up online. I just got back from being on medical leave for 6 weeks, so my apologies that it hasn't been done sooner, but our staff's been doing a great job without me right now, so. But I do hear your concerns, but I also think that it's a broader discussion and it's way above me. It's, all 3 town select boards getting together and
Great.
having that discussion.
I'm just raising the point.
Yep.
Yeah.
But 25% of $1 million per
Yeah, point-
year tab is too.
Point taken, and probably been discussed a lot in forums that you haven't been in.
Fair enough.
Joyce has brought
Thank you
that up
for-
many times.
Thank you for giving me the
Yes, yes.
consideration to ask
Yeah.
that question.
I also want to share, in addition to what Whately puts in Sunderland and Deerfield, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts provides us an appropriation or a stipend, annual stipend of $15 per older adult that comes in and totals $45,405. It's based on older adults in each population. So we get it based on the statistical data that we shared before. There's 3,027 older adults based on the federal census data of 2020. That doesn't get analyzed again until 2030 because unfortunately, everything's based on the federal census, not based on your annual town census that gets sent out. So that's in addition to this, but that also funds, as you may notice, for our program assistant and our outreach coordinator, their full salaries are not listed because the other shares got put out to grants. And if you look at the budget supporting memo that I handed out before, you'll see that I brought in over $573,000 in grant funds in the past 3 years. So we've been able to, thank you. We've been able to provide digital access to our older adults in all 3 towns. So the biggest change on the annual budget for 26 is that we're reallocating the funding that had been put aside for the space at the church, at the Holy Family Church, which was allocated at $14,400. We're reallocating that to supplement our program coordinator's position because we were able to, with the grant funding, we were able to increase his hours to help support our hybrid programming programs to help our older adults who are homebound and those who weren't able to attend in person for whatever reason, if they were traveling or otherwise. So we were able to provide, funding for him to go from 19 hours a week to 35 hours a week. That was done through the approval of the Board of Oversight, which Joyce is the chair of, as well as approval for the Deerfield Select Board.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
How many homebound members do you have?
Right now, we had 34 older adults participate in hybrid programming, and they are homebound folks. They don't drive unless we were to go and pick them up. But yes, so we have 34.
And what number would be from Whately?
That I do not know off the top of my head is the hybrid programming. We just wrapped up that program at the end of day yesterday. So that statistical information will be available within the next few weeks. I'm happy to send that over through Peter if you would like it through that. But our homebound folks, I know there are a few from there's one couple from Whately who doesn't drive anymore, a few people from Sunderland. I know there's a few people from Deerfield. As to more folks in Whately who participated, I'm not 100% sure on the data. But I know at least 2 who did.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So reallocating that funding. In addition, we have exhausted all of our grant opportunities to provide movement classes. With the needs assessment that was conducted in 2021 through 2022 through UMass, we found that the majority of older adults who reside in the 3 towns were interested in movement classes, exercise, things along those natures. The grand total of all of our movement classes is a little over $15,000. We added a line item for $3,000 to go towards movement classes because, as you know, with the economy or federal funding changes currently going on, Title III grant opportunities do not look like they're going to be possible past fiscal 25. And we've exhausted all of our grants that we have except for Mass in Motion and a couple small ones. Right now, as of my most recent correspondence with Rachel Stoller this afternoon through FERCog, who facilitates the Mass in Motion, that right now at this time does not look like it will be affected. So we're able to pay for seated dance, drumming with Tara, and Tai Chi from those because they're once a week. But the enhanced fitness, chair yoga, and balance in motion are now going towards a pay per class fund or model, and we will be charging those outside of the 3 towns a higher fee than those who reside in the 3 towns. However, at this time, those who participate actively in those 3 classes are just from the 3 towns. That's how we've been keeping it because there is a wait list. So we don't allow those who live outside of the 3 towns to participate if there is an active wait list. We let those who live in the 3 towns, get seniority. So that was added. In addition, with all of our new members, we have increased the cost of our newsletter. It has pretty much almost doubled. What we're trying to do to offset that cost, on the communities is to ask people to make a donation if they would like their newsletter mailed to them. As you know, postage has increased. We did do some cost saving measures by going to mailing out the newsletter every other month. So we do it 2 months at a time. And that's, we've reduced the cost, although we do expand the page numbers because we're sending out 2 months worth of information. The other added cost is the retirement benefit towards our other 2 employees and myself. My salary is fully covered under this operations budget, and the other half of the other 2 salaries are provided by our funding, the formula fund through the Commonwealth, as well as our outreach coordinator is also our transportation coordinator driver. So his 8 hours a week from his salary gets funded by a grant that we have co-existing with the PBTA. So we have funding, and they're also going to be, and for fiscal 26, the Board of Oversight will hear about this Thursday at our meeting. We got approval through another grant with MassDOT and the PBTA to provide support to us. The PBTA is going to provide us another van to provide transportation for medical appointments, and then grant funds will pay for the salary for Chris, our outreach coordinator, to do additional 4 hours a week or so estimated for medical appointments to those who can't get over that invisible barrier line, to go north or to go south, depending on which RTA is covering.
Didn't we buy a van last year?
We did. That will be delivered in July.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it may be mid to end, so it's after the fiscal year, but that's because of the timeline for they build it for us and then it's delivered.
Okay.
So that money was already appropriated. I've been working with Peter to keep him apprised.
Okay.
So that way, but when we have that, we will be having a big celebration. So
Because last year, we went up in vehicle and maintenance because we had an older van, we're doing a lot of
Yep.
money into, but we're going up again.
because we'll have we currently still have the 2011
Okay.
van. We're still using the vehicle until it gives out on us.
Okay,
But the additional $1,000 is to go towards having two vehicles. But the grant that we're getting with the PVTA partnership, it's funded in there for maintenance, for detailing and things like that for that
so we'll have three
vehicle.
vans.
We will now have three vans, but the 2011, it's 2025. I think that may have gone past its usage, but we're doing the best with what we have. And if the MassDOT grant is available again in the future, we have the option to trade that in to get a new vehicle. So then we would have two brand new and then one used from
How
PVTA.
many drivers do you have?
We have one, and then our program coordinator does drive and I also drive.
Okay.
But in the future, if we end up getting or going to scale, with more events, more drivers, things along those lines, then, we would look at the problem at potentially hiring part-time people, but we're not there yet. And we're hoping that the MassDOT programs will still exist. But we're keeping the Board of Oversight apprised of that. And we're considering a volunteer drivers program, but there are pros and cons to that as well.
You're under 15.
Yes, it's 14 passenger because otherwise you need a CDL. Oh, yeah.
This is total.
Jen, can you go into a little background on the increase in the retirement line?
Yes, retirement is because our program coordinator is now retiring or is now getting that benefit. That started in July of 2024. He went up to, sorry, I'm trying to remember what year we're in. After Tom was here for 6 months, because of the hybrid programming grant, we were able to obtain that additional hours through the approval of the BOO and the Deerfield Selectboard. So with that came the increase of the retirement, as well as Chris, our outreach coordinator, also increased his hours, I believe, after a year. So in 2023, which would have been the tail end of calendar year 23 moving into fiscal 24. So 24 for fiscal 24, the retirement benefit went up slightly because of Chris, the outreach coordinators increase in hours. And then for this year, it's because our program coordinator is up to 35 as well.
Yeah, well, it doubled from 24 to 25 and then
Yes.
went up 50% again,
Yes.
25 to 26.
Yeah, that's the information that I got from our town accountant, for Deerfield's town accountant. I got the information from her.
That makes sense.
And that's something I believe that the retirement program sets.
What sites do you pay for snow removal and landscaping?
I'm sorry?
What sites do you pay for snow removal and landscaping if you lease space? And
Yep. So our leased space in Sunderland, they provide lawn service, but they do not provide plowing. So plowing is what we pay for at that space in Sunderland. This year, we actually used most of our budget for the month of February because of all the ice.
Yeah.
And that. So the previous year, we didn't use as much. This year, we used slightly more. But $1,200, give or take, because of how we've been going climate wise, it's been a little warmer, but the concern that we have is the ice piece. So they plow, but the staff, including myself, shovels the ramp and shovels the front stairs.
Okay, it just seems odd to me that we're leasing space. The landlord said, well, mow the lawn, we're not gonna plow the snow.
That was our agreement. They're actually renting it to us under market rate.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
food support?
yes,
With the pending cuts to various food programs at the federal level, including SNAP. I've been talking to folks at Food Bank of Western Florida and folks at the Survival Center about what they're looking at going forward for food insecurity in our area. What are you projecting, thinking about?
so because we partner with the Food Bank of Western Mass, and we also partner with the Franklin Area Survival Center, who gets their food distribution from the food bank.
Yeah.
we're actually looking to see an increase in usage, but a decrease in items available. We already started seeing it earlier this year because certain items were no longer becoming available. We, in the past, when they've gotten towards the end of their funding year categories, we no longer have like actual meat products. They, you know, put like a meat substitute where they'll do more of tuna fish if they have that, or they'll do more towards beans and things like that, which our population of older adults that we serve don't usually use. We don't offer congregate meals because we don't have a space to do it. We will utilize like the Polish Club for our holiday program, our Friendsgiving, and we had our St. Patrick's Day event there. But we're capped at around 100, 110 people who go. We get a lot more people who are interested in congregate meals who we turn away regularly. We do offer the grab and go through Life Path at our site, but you know, just like the Food Bank of Western Mass and the Survival Center, it's possible that the funding for Meals on Wheels, which is part of the grab and go program, could be reduced or eliminated depending on what the administration on the federal level is doing.
Right.
So, you know, we see an increased need for food support.
Yeah.
So what we may do if we are unable to obtain items from the food bank directly, we may start, you know, putting things out to the community. Chief Savine did a Stuff the Cruiser event with the elementary school for Thanksgiving the other year. And, you know, so we obtained a lot of items. So we're, you know, those are things that we could look at expanding on in the future with Frontier as well. But the food need is going through everyone in our community, not just our older adults.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be interested in speaking with you at some other point about community-wide support.
Sure, that would be wonderful, because I know that we have an average of 34 to 50 households monthly that we support between the brown bag program, which is the free bag of groceries that's income guideline based through the Food Bank of Western Mass. It's applied for monthly, or they do the income requirements there. It's distributed on the first Thursday of every month. But then we do our food pop-up through the Franklin Area Survival Center, but that's also a partnership with the Food Bank of Western Mass. So if they see a decline in availability, we're gonna be feeling that as well.
And we're gonna see it across schools.
Yes.
School meals and
you know, but I want to share with you that I'm really trying to be forward thinking, looking at where we are, not just partnering with the police department and the schools and things like that, trying to get, you know, food drives in, but for future planning with whatever space we end up with, you know, one of the things I really want to focus on is growing our own food, so that because we have a lot of gardeners who love to volunteer, and you know, having that ability to utilize that in our daily food planning, but also to provide any extra to those in our community who are in need.
Thank you.
Great, I look forward to speaking with you.
Very good.
Thank you.
No one would question the amount of program that you offer. Just so we have the numbers straight, and you are requesting from Whately $53,216.
Okay, yes, I am requesting that amount.
So that's an increase of $8,067 for a percentage increase of 17.87.
Yes, sir.
Correct. If anyone at home who's listening who was unsure, those are the numbers that we're looking at regarding South County Senior Center. And those numbers are relative to utilization. And as you said, you have 59 of our residents attending this center for an ongoing usage.
Yes.
Okay, thank you
You're welcome.
very much. Do we have any other questions regarding South County?
I just have one on the
Go ahead.
longer spreadsheet.
Sure.
Just trying to understand it, the layout. The total appropriated is at half the rate of the total cost, and I'm not sure why that would be.
Could you tell me what column or which one?
Look at 2026, by example. It says total appropriated at the bottom is 106K.
Yes, 106, 432, because this particular form is Deerfield's
Got it.
form. So
Thank you.
unfortunately, this is what I use, so that 106,000 would be what Deerfield, would be
I thought
appropriated.
that might
in
be
this.
the answer, but I wasn't sure.
No, it's a good question. I would love to have my own spreadsheet, but you know, I don't want to recreate the wheel, so I just use it here.
I do your time to continue that great program.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again.
Thank you. If anyone has any other questions or wants more information, data, please don't hesitate to reach out.
That's the website.
So we actually have a separate website, southcountyseniorcenter.org. And we will be putting up the community forum information within the next week that will have the breakdown on the cost calculation that your
Right.
peer next to you has. I'm sorry, I don't
Jerry.
remember your name.
His name is Gary.
Jerry. So the information Jerry has from the community forum with the breakdown of the cost analysis based on tax ramifications, et cetera. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Very good. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. We have 6:25. Only 10 minutes away, not bad. We have the highway department and we have Mr. Godwell in the room. Keith, how you doing? Good.
For the last time.
For the last time. Are you teasing? Are you teasing us?
It's not April Fool's.
We're, okay, I gotta find this, hang on.
10.
Doing a paper shovel, where?
10.
10, top 10. Gotcha. Okay, so, when we look at the, total needs of the highway department. I'm gonna let you go.
Okay,
Tell us what's going on.
I'll go over down through the sections and I'll touch on the increases.
Okay,
At this point in time, certainly in the personnel, there's nothing been entered there because that information is still being worked out with the personnel committee. Once we have that information and once the finance committee and the select board come to an acceptance of what the personnel committee recommends, just like in the past, that will get plugged in at a later time.
okay,
So under general highways, there's a small increase of $140 on the uniform, and that's based on the contract, the state contract price for the company that provides it. Catch basin cleaning is $1,000 increase, which is up from a request from has been 8,000, and I'm requesting 9,000.
Yeah.
If you look back to the 23 and 24 lines, we've been spending over 9,000. What's just continues to happen is the hourly expense. It's this service is provided through our Franklin Regional Council of Government bid program. So the entire county has the same contract price with a company that provides the catch basin cleaning, and it's currently at $265 an hour. So in a matter of a week, working 5 days, I'm over $10,000. So I don't get a lot done in that $9,000. One of the things that has been beneficial in reducing the amount of solids that we see is some years ago when the town stopped using sand on our paved roads, we saw a tremendous benefit in that aspect that the catch basins weren't full of sand on a yearly basis. So it has allowed us to not have that number even higher if we were still using sand.
but that's that, you spray that liquid salt on it.
Yes, the salt is treated with an additive as well. Yes. On the other one that has done a big jump is line painting. Same thing in 2024, I spent over $13,000. what's happening there is, and I don't know if even if anybody's just gone and looked at a gallon of paint in a hardware store, it's expensive.
Yep.
Pigment has gone out of this world as far as pricing goes.
Yep.
So that's the same thing that we deal with in line painting. It's had such a major increase in the last few years. Other things that I would love to do more of, especially as everybody gets more newer vehicles that have lane departure features in them. When we have roads that don't have fog lines, the white lines on the side, and your vehicle starts to stray off the side of the road, your lane departure is not going to help you one bit. So I'd love to be able to do more fog lines than I have done in the past, but again, just to give you an idea, to do the entire town of our paved roads, our main roads, which is only 23 miles approximately that we would paint, because I don't paint roads like, for instance, Pine Plain Estates, where someone's not traveling at high speeds and not likely to run off the road. So a lot of our other ones that might be like Clavert is what they're secondary, or Dickinson Hill, Masterson. There's a lot of roads that are not more like thorough roads that, so anyways, just to do the main roads at 23 miles with the center line and the fog line, I'd be spending about 39 to 40,000 a year to do that, which is just a huge amount of money. So we tried to do the center lines on a every other year basis, and trying to keep the cost down. And that's why we're still at, I'm asking for the 13,000 for that. And those are the only increases for all of the general highways expenses. Same thing on page 2, the personnel section, the winter roads. There's been nothing new added there at this time until that gets taken care of. As far as the general expenses, salt, I feel we're good at 45,000 right now. In this current fiscal year, I'm sitting at around 41,000 spent to date, and we have a fairly good supply that will be carried forward into next year. So I don't feel we need to worry about anything there. Plow blades, I've taken a little bit off. And the one thing that is really throwing it out of proportion, so to speak, is at a request of our town accountant, wanting to see the shoveling contracts for the town building in the highway winter roads account. Previously, they were coming out of town maintenance, the town building maintenance account. So that's skewing that number there a little bit.
Is that also the reason for the plowing of the town lots, that 4K?
What was that?
Up above, there's a plowing town lots overnight.
Yes,
Yes,
the double
okay.
asterisk is noted that that's because their freehold are pulled over from the really. Budget.
Last year's budget, they were in a different category.
Got it.
So again, that's used the number. It was never in that account before.
Gotcha.
And again, this is something that our town accountant is requesting, and I see no reason why. One of the things about this aspect is the way the contracts are written. Those contractors that supply the service are report in question. I'm the one that oversees that for the highway superintendent. So that's why she wanted it in that budget. Okay.
Yep.
On the road machinery, everything is remaining the same. On to general expenses for the garage maintenance account. The phone was budgeted and in the last couple of years has not been hitting what was appropriated in that section, so I've reduced that a little bit. Moving on to the tree department portion of it. The one thing that I will just make a note of, and until the town knows what's gonna happen with the tree warden in the future, there has been no salary aspect to this department because it's been incorporated in the highway department. So that may be something that needs to be addressed in the future.
So that's, when you say it's incorporated and it's not, doesn't show on the line item, you mean that those expenses were just absorbed by the department?
Correct. The highway department has been providing all of the labor for tree removal since the last time we had a separate tree warden, which has been quite a few years.
Yep.
Since there's been a separate tree warden. Going forward, if the person who replaces me is not the tree warden and is doing something on their own, and they go out, that person goes out and marks trees, does the hearings, cuts trees, they're gonna be looking for compensation for their hourly timeline.
Unless we build that into the contract.
Well, again, it's a separate, it's a separate appointment.
Yeah.
It is not just a highway superintendent, it's a separate appointment that it's part of.
Is that required by the state?
Yes,
Oh, it is. Okay.
yeah, it's not an automatic, it has to be,
Gotcha.
it has to be a separate appointment that
Yeah.
that person has to accept.
Well, we haven't had one for all this time, so you've been acting tree warden.
I accept the position as tree warden as a separate appointment
Right,
by the select board.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? In the job description for the new highway department supervisor, is that going to be?
That's
No,
what we-
because the tree warden is a separate
Yes,
appointment, so
but
it's separate
will
from
you,
the job
is
description.
he going to be asked if he would be willing to take on that?
Oh, we can certainly ask that, yeah, but it is a separate role, so it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
baked into the job description.
I'm still hoping we can twist his arm to stay on the tree warden for next year, but
For free.
And for free.
The issue with it, where it was, what led up to the highway department, assuming myself becoming the tree warden, was at one point in time, we had a separate tree warden. And when work needed to be done, because the highway department had the dump trucks, the highway department had the equipment to pick things up and load things and move things. They'd come to us and say, I need to do some work. When can you help us out? Or when can you help me out? And it ended up basically being a separate tree warden working with the rest of the highway department to do the work. And so there was a time where there was a turnover. And that's when I assumed that position, but as Pete just said, it's a separate position.
Yeah.
We don't know what's gonna happen going forward. So
So,
just I'm saying you have to somewhat be prepared that it might require a little bit of labor.
but at the end of the day, whether we have a tree warden or we don't have a tree warden, when a tree has to come down, the tree warden doesn't have a separate access to all this equipment. It's the town highway department's equipment.
Yes.
So that tree warden will, in effect, ask, now, whether you're here or not,
Assuming
will
they'll-
ask
right,
the highway department, take that tree down, please.
right, and they can still work with an outside contractor to come in with a big bucket truck like we're
Outside.
still doing now, and that's on here, equipment, outside contracting is the biggest part. $7,500, that's already still being done on a contract basis.
so that money, the tree warden would have access to.
Right.
They would go to the
Yeah,
highway
this-
department and say, I'd like to spend some of that money and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This part, you know, when you actually look on the expenditure report that the town accountant has, this is a separate account number.
I got you.
Okay, so it's not, even though I'm presenting it.
Yep.
It's a separate account number from all of the other highway department accounts.
Keith, is that outside contracting with the FERCog? That bid?
It is, They do bid it, but so far we've been able to do better than what they have. Yes. That is an option that the town does look at. I monitor to keep an eye on, but
So you essentially, for the town, if a tree needs to come down, you can make that assessment and say that tree has to come down. Correct?
yeah, under
Okay.
the
On
chapter.
Weber
87,
Road,
yeah.
this is very Weber Road,
The setup.
actually on the Bean property, there is a tree that has been trimmed to, it can't be trimmed anymore. It's a big oak tree. And
it's an ash
and it
tree.
comes out,
It's an ash tree,
it's an ash tree.
yeah.
Okay, well, see, that's why we have.
Well, we have
we have a
the-
warning. There you go. So is that coming down?
The last day that we had a contractor in, that was where we ended the day. The next time I bring in a contractor in, which will be before June 30th, that'll be the first place we start.
Okay.
It was a scenario
All
where
right.
our
That's a
time,
good
you
thing.
know, a day ended and it wasn't able to finish it.
Yeah.
So that's where it,
All right.
okay?
So,
All right.
forgive Paul not knowing his vote from his ash.
Well.
I
Good
thought
point.
that was-
Good point.
So I'm gonna get back to line painting for a second. This is getting more and more expensive, increasingly more expensive, right? So do we share that burden with other towns? Because it seems like buying paint is every.
This is this is a contract that is done by the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. So the contractors that operate are usually in Eastern Mass. We're not buying any equipment to share. They come into our town, spray the lines and they're gone.
No,
To
I
the
know,
next,
they do a great job.
it's a, that amount of money only goes about 4 hours worth of painting and it's done.
That's amazing.
So, there's no really there's no sharing. It's all in cost per foot.
It's already under a collective procurement, which helps get that rate down.
Keith, while you're here, prior to your replacement next year, how many miles of road do you maintain?
31,
31?
of which about, about 4 plus or minus are gravel. Somewhere in that vicinity is the breakdown.
I want to commend the highway department for their keeping up with the pothole, unlike some towns near here. Will not be named, but.
I think we can name Northampton.
We don't have very many potholes in Whately, no.
Just go over to Fergie.
It's all on how you maintain them. man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then hold on.
Regardless of, whether you were here or not, I would say. I live on the west side and I have to go to Conway and I have to go to Bergie and all that. Our roads are great.
I think you do a great.
They did a great job this winter.
Yeah.
That team.
Absolutely.
Many years of proper drainage and building roads, fixing roads. That's why we got on those right now. A lot of work in your part.
Okay, are you done?
I wanted to discuss capital if
Oh,
you wanted to.
okay, but before you get that, are there any questions regarding the line items? To keep?
I have nothing more to offer unless you have questions for me to answer.
I do not. Anyone else?
I think we ought to
No.
give a lot of applause to his years of service.
Years of service. We'll see you at the end. I'll stop by the end. Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on to capital. All right.
I know.
Well, I got it. I take it pride, I take pride in it.
Okay, we're looking at, okay, Keith, go ahead, talk about,
The one thing that is, I remember correctly, was recommended by the capital improvement committee as a, or the highest priority was the window removal at the town hall. Storm windows.
Yeah.
That basically is, if you all remember, the windows that were originally in the town hall after it was rehabilitated was the windows had a UV coating film put on them, and the film did not last. It has streaking and and basically gives it a purple hue, and when you stand there and look at it, it looks like somebody sprayed the windows with stuff, and they just do not look very pretty. The company, when the first windows started to deteriorate, color changed, the contractor came in and removed those windows and replaced them at their expense under warranty. And they still are continuing to fail. And the way it was left, Brian Domina was still the town administrator, and we negotiated with the company that they will replace all the windows one last time, but they will not stand behind them under any warranty ever again going forward. So, and at the same time, they said they would only do that if the town would be responsible to have them removed, get them on the ground, and then when they come back, the town would be responsible to have them reinstalled. In talking even further with other glass companies, what we determined to be the best bet is to just get the company to replace the windows without this coloring, without this UV laminate on there, because they're not sealed. They're exposed to the environment, and they will just discolor again. So this expenditure was an estimate from Greenfield Glass to come in with a lift truck, remove the windows, get them down on the ground, and then the other company, which is Allied Window and True Light is the manufacturer, will then come take them away and bring them back. And then we would call Greenfield Glass again, and they would come put them back in. So that's what this is all about. We really have, if we're going to accept their proposal in getting them replaced so that they don't look like they do now, this is our only option, is unless we are to do something else litigation wise, where we attempt to take them to court to force them to do that. I don't think, and I remember Brian feeling that this is probably would be our best bet, because legal expenses would exceed what we're up against. So
exactly.
That is why it is that was ranked as a priority, because it's pretty much something we have to do.
Well,
And also, if I can, it's also because in case the company decides, no, we're not going to replace the windows either, we want to get it done.
Get it done.
There's an urgency here,
right,
because they may just back out entirely, they take us to court.
Any questions regarding this process or?
The UV film is to prevent discoloration of fabric.
Well, it was supposed to help reflect heat, the sunlight, and keep the heat in the building and the cold out. You know, I don't know if JD can
It's supposed
elaborate a
to
little
make
bit.
it more energy efficient structure.
Right.
They tried to do with the double panes to, which are double pane window. I mean,
Just like, I think fewer radiative losses if you have that coming.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
So that's that. The other aspect of the capital is the painting of the building.
Yep.
And I believe the ranking on that was a B rank, not as high a priority. It is, something that when you look at the building, you can see that it's, needs to be done. There are some aspects of the building on the north side down the first 4 feet where, it has already been touched up by, the town has already done some work on that already. The estimate that we have provided is applying a Mad Dog primer, which is a very high quality primer, and followed by Benjamin Moore latex white paint, which would be what would be used for a top coat. As far as where the building is and what's causing it to peel, things of that nature, the building has, as you all know, been there for hundreds of years. It has many coats of paint on it. The paint and the product that's on it isn't what's failing. It's the older areas where the paint that was on there for hundreds of years is what's failing. So when it gets scraped, the areas that get scraped down clean, the primer and the paint, those are not the spots that are peeling and failing at this point. It's the other areas that are hard, heavier and thicker. There is definitely lead. There's not going to be any assumption that there is no lead. There is no need to test because they assume there is. So they'll put down the tarping and everything will have to be collected and taken away in that aspect so that there's no lead chips left.
Are they gonna do any sanding in addition to scrape?
It'll be a scrape all the areas followed by the primer.
So no sand.
Correct. As far as the other aspects, I feel it's something, again, I'm presenting it. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if it's sat for another year. It's just appearance. But depending on where the town feels they are financially this year versus next year, that would be something that you as the finance committee can put forth. I certainly feel that the only thing that would most likely happen going forward is the cost will continue to go up. One other thing that after I had submitted this and reviewed it again is I do not see that it makes mention to prevailing wage. This will be a prevailing wage job that might, as it is, when I added up the estimate and I went with the high sides on everything, comes up to $28,070 to do everything. And I had submitted for $30,000. So it might still be safe. It may be best without me going back and double checking before. I could definitely go back and figure this out within a week's time to see if prevailing wage would skew that number to the point where 30,000 is not enough, but.
Okay, so how would the coordination happen between the painting and the windows?
Yeah, I mean, you pose a good question that if at all possible, it would be great to have the windows removed while the painting is being done. I'd have to see, whether, number one, it's not going to be the same company. You're dealing with two different companies, whether that can get coordinated. I guess I would suggest, and I know that's what you're suggesting, that they try to that it be coordinated and save on that expense for having to bring a lift in on a separate time. Now, maybe the painting company could start to do some work, on a lower level where they don't need the lift right away. I don't know without asking Greenfield Class how many hours they need it. If it's something where they can come in fairly quick. We certainly, if I still have any involvement in it, I would certainly try to coordinate that, yes.
Okay, and this number is for the entire building? It's just the north side?
No, that was to do all of the only other, the option one was the rear wall. The rest of them are all the others, the three sides.
Mhm.
So when you add up option one, which is the rear, which is the area that's not that, the best part of the building right now is the new addition.
Right,
Because but when you look at the west, or when you stand on the east side of the building and look to the west, when you look above, the addition, so like the second floor, you can see that needs to be painted. My feeling is it should be all done all at once, not try to come back and forth every other, because the same thing that's gonna happen going forward the next time it needs it. You don't wanna be trying to piece it together, because one of the biggest expenses is to bring the equipment in to paint it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Paul, again, just a note, the building was not repainted when it was renovated.
Right.
Yeah.
It was painted a few years before,
Right.
I wanna say maybe 5 years beforehand, because it was really bad.
Yeah, I
And,
remember that.
and it couldn't wait any longer, the town finally.
I just want to make clear that.
Right.
Yeah, this isn't a repainting, this
Right.
this is almost like from scratch, almost.
Well,
Sort of. But
again,
you mentioned, when you mentioned that that the areas that were peeling were more than likely due to old paint that was underneath that paint and it didn't adhere, is that inaccurate?
No, it's breaking, that paint is breaking away from the wood.
That paint's breaking away.
Correct.
So to Jerry's point, will you be, the clavards will not be sanded?
I believe that creates, an issue with the lead. It's scrape only.
Okay.
That's why I was asking the question. All right. So you don't want to go airborne. I met Keith out there the other day. Look at this, okay? I brought this up with the municipal building committee when I was on about that structure. When the architects tightened up that building, this was going to be exacerbated. And I brought that up and everyone shut me down, but it's just going to get worse. What's happening is in New England, we have, depending on the season, the dew point in the middle of the wall. So your glass of water in July has got water on the outside of it. So depending on the temperature differential between the inside and the outside, the humidity level, either water against the sheathing or against the plaster on the inside.
Right.
And as you tighten up the building, that water's going to want to get pushed to the outside. And without a ventilated rain screen behind it, doing it how we build houses now, it's forcing that moisture through the wall. It's forcing it through all that old wood and all the areas where you got old lead-based paint and oil-based paint that's inflexible. That's losing its adhesion coming off. Where you're down to bare wood, the Mad Dog primer, it's elastomeric, it's gripping really, really well.
Right.
So until all that other stuff comes up, so keep peeling until all that old stuff falls off.
Excellent. You'll be there at annual town meeting, right?
It's not a professional.
Resource, you need resource.
word.
Okay,
So can I ask a clarifying question? I feel like I heard something on conflict, I just not sure what I heard wrong. That this is for the quote looks like it's for 3 sides, not 4 sides. You said you want to do the whole thing.
It's front and 2 sides
Front and
is
2
on the
sides.
top.
But that's not 4, because front,
When you look at option
Yeah.
one, it says rear wall. That's the
okay,
4th wall,
Like 30,
okay,
28.
so it is 4 walls,
correct.
okay. Thanks, that's a
And
good,
that totals, when I took the high end of their materials,
that
it
gets you up
comes
to
up to
30.
$28,070. And then I just
And
paid
you just get a
30,000,
little
so.
cushion, yeah.
okay. Any further questions? About anything?
Keith,
For Keith?
what's causing the mold?
Yes, Christian, right, too.
And are you planning to replace the bottom clapboard
on the south side and the north side, the
There's-
cracked.
There's only a few places where they're cracked, but there does not appear to be any rot in it.
Good.
And as far as mold, I think what you're seeing, I don't think it's mold, it's the mildew that you get on the building.
It's mold and mildew, airborne spores, a food source and a water source in the north side of the building, so you can't get rid of it, it's out there, it's just looking for a place to hire.
And in fact, I mean, even when you see houses with vinyl siding, the north sides of those houses, vinyl siding, the mildew digs right in and starts turning like blackness. So
Yeah.
it attacks every surface.
Ethan, are there, gutters on the north and south side?
No, and the reason there's no gutters, it's a slate roof.
Okay.
And when the snow slides, if you have there's a little bit of ice coming over the edge into the gutters and then it decides to slide, your gutters are going with it.
But what about if you don't have the gutter with all the rain that's sheeting on the north and the south side? Is any of that splashback causing any of the lower?
It certainly doesn't help that splash
Yeah,
on this, certainly doesn't help, but there really isn't much more we can do based on the fact that the building level, if it had like a higher foundation wall,
Mhm.
that would be we'd be better off in that aspect, but that's not the way the building is.
Peter, in new construction, there's just no gutters, we put a stone apron around it.
Yeah.
So. there's still right in the ground.
yeah, immediately gets absorbed,
I
yeah.
have-
And I take it that's not an option here, or it would be a conflict.
There's concrete there, and again, it's also because if you remove the concrete, you'd have to do something else to prevent any water from migrating back towards the building, because it would then
You'd have to.
rotting the wood sill in there, so. We don't really have much option based on the elevation that the building's at.
I've got a question.
Question?
What's the situation with the bridge on Christian Lane?
The bridge on Christian Lane, the state of Massachusetts has a program, it's called the Bridge Replacement Program, Bridge Repair Program. And they rank all of the bridges in the state of Massachusetts. And just like many of the other bridges throughout the last 30 years that have been replaced in Whately, which extends to about, I think 9 bridges we've had replaced under that program. When it gets to the point that it deteriorates enough, it will get to the top of the list. Unfortunately, when the way that bridge is built, underneath it is what's called piling. They're nothing more than looking like a utility pole. If you walk down underneath and look at it, you'll see that there's rows of nothing more than utility poles that were pounded into the ground to help support the load of the weight. What's happened is the south side, many of those utility poles piles have rotted and deteriorated to the point where they're all literally, you can take and pull them apart or take a chipping hammer and poke holes in them. And so the north side is still okay. And that's why Mass DOT said through the bridge inspection, said that the bridge can remain open, doesn't need to be closed. In fact, they never changed the rating. So when we had to make it a one lane bridge, the same vehicle that could drive over it before can still drive over it. So it didn't really gain any ground, so to speak, in deterioration, because if an oil truck could drive over it before, they still can now. It didn't deteriorate rating wise. If they had said, okay, now only thing that can drive over it is a car, then that would have shot us up tremendously higher on the list. Or if they had this to close it. other things that factor in, there's a lot of things, but one of the other factors on that bridge that don't help us out is the fact that if and when it needs to be closed, it is not a huge detour to get from one side to the other. There are other communities that when you close a road or that one bridge, you're talking 15, 20 minutes or even maybe more to get from one side to the other side. The only thing that we have working for us is its classification on the roadwise is called a major collector. Meaning, that thoroughway from Haydenville Road, Chestnut Plain, Christian Lane, down to Route 5 gives it a higher classification from the amount of vehicles that travel on it. So, the state certainly knows we want it replaced as quick as possible. The only other option Whately has is to say it'd be for us to come to the finance committee and ask for millions of dollars to do it ourselves. And
it was last inspected in November.
it's now being inspected, every year.
Yeah, and we just got the report. It was in November. It was last inspected and approved for continued use.
So that's what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
I would then speak to the capital request one. The planning study, 22K.
Different problem.
Yeah, but that's also one that's been recommended for not moving forward, for not taking action.
Okay.
Because Keith is looking at other funding opportunities.
I just have a quick question. Is there any enforcement on weight limits on bridges, and does that fall on Whately, or is that state police or DOT?
The truck team would be attempting to get a truck team member to respond and witness it and
What
bring it up.
is the weight limit on the bridge?
Single axle is like 13 ton, yeah, I think 13 for a single, 31 maybe for a trailer. I don't remember. I have to-
I mean, I grew up in West Whately, as you did. The log trucks at 80,000 on that bridge every friggin' day.
It's, you're right. The one thing that I can tell you when you're dealing with the way they rate them is originally that rating was based on assuming that there'd be two vehicles on the bridge at one time.
Yeah.
So that kind of factors in. But that's why, it's, you're right, that they do drive overweight, but yet it's not, I don't feel it's that detrimental on our side.
It's not good.
But you'll also see, it also causes a lot more heavy traffic on Swamp Road by the fact of that.
That's heavy
That
bridge.
it is posted, yes.
Okay.
you good? You good?
Yeah.
We're good. Are you good? Well, we're all set. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard.
Thank you.
All right, following, the highway department, we have the police department. And lo and behold, the chief is in the, and, we are,
This will be much less complex
9:30.
than the last two.
got
I'm
what?
retired. Tab 9.
Got 9. Got it. Yes, right after the fire. Here we go. So, is this up to date, chief?
I don't know what you're looking at, but
What I'm looking at is,
should be the same thing.
an increase of $2,950, 8.41%.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So your total request for 2026 is $38,029.
No.
No, that's just the general expense. Next page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got
Oh.
1,000% reduction.
There you go. You
got all
really
excited.
smoke and mirrors again. He almost said yes.
When I originally did this, it was only one page. So
Okay.
that's not my.
For all of you paying attention at home, the request of our police department is $277,641. An increase of $2,950 and a 1.07% increase.
That's with payroll level funded.
Right.
That's-
That's without the payroll. Okay, go ahead.
So,
Tell us about the highs and the lows.
so if I could just take a couple of minutes, because I know there's some new members, just to give a brief overview of the police department, so everybody's on the same page. But I've gotten a lot of questions. How many shifts we cover, how many cars we have, what is this, what is that? So just a little bit, I won't get too much into the history of it. But, our department consists of 10 police officers. There's 3 full-time police officers, me included, so myself and 2 others that are full-time. And we have 7 part-time officers. We cover at minimum 2 shifts a day, 7 days per week. So we don't have an overnight shift. I want to tell everybody to go ahead and speed it till 2 o'clock in the morning. But, so we cover up until midnight, 2 shifts a day, 7 days a week. We currently have, this is another big question that people are not concerned, but just curious about, is currently we have 4 cruisers. So if you drive by the police station and all the cars are there, you're gonna see 4 cars. So they're numbered 1 through 4. The number 1 car is the car that's the unmarked car. That's the car that I drive primarily. So that comes home with me, transport back and forth. So that's the 1 car. The 2 car and the 3 car are 2 frontline cars. So those 2 cars get split evenly between the rest of the shifts for the week for our other 2 full-time officers plus the part-time shifts. So those, at this point, those are getting used equally amongst the other officers. The 4th car, that's always the oldest car in the fleet. That's always the one that isn't in the greatest of shape. That's the one with the highest miles. That car becomes our detail car, what we call a detail car. A detail is when, say, Verizon or Eversource or a tree company or any vendor that works out on the road or next to the road calls us and says, we have to trim trees or we have to put up a new pole. They'll call us, request a detail. A police officer will go there on a detail. Sometimes they request the use of a cruiser. What we've been trying to do lately, just because it's 5 and 10 and it's busier, is if there's a detail on 5 and 10, we'll make sure that we have a cruiser there as well, if they're out on 5 and 10. So when that 4th car gets used, we charge a $10 per hour fee to the vendor for the use of that car. So there are no maintenance expenses for that car. We don't buy tires out of the budget. We don't maintain that car out of the police budget. That comes out of the cruiser detail account, which is funded by the vendors.
Which goes into the general fund.
No, that goes to a specific account within the police
It's a
department.
revolving fund. Okay.
Yeah, it's a revolving
A
fund. It goes
revolving fund within the police.
specifically for the police department to be
Gotcha.
used to maintain that detail car.
Gotcha.
If something happens to it, if we need work on it, needs tires or,
Mhm.
so the only thing that doesn't get used or that doesn't get paid for out of that account would be fuel for the use of that car.
Mhm.
But again, when we do a detail, there's also an administrative fee, a 10% administrative fee that gets charged to the vendor that comes back to the town. That administrative fee goes back into the general fund. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I want to say it's for administrative fees. I think we're up to about $130,000 worth of details. So we're looking at $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 for administrative fees that come back to the town. More details we do, the more comes in through the detail account. The only ones that don't pay the detail or the administrative fee is Mass DOT and the town of Whately if we do a Whately detail. So the state won't pay us for doing work on town or I'm sorry, state roads. They won't pay us the 10% administrative fee, and we don't charge the town for that either. So that's the structure, kind of the structure of the police department. the number of officers that we have and, the cruisers. Just to touch a little bit on the training, because it's kind of part of the budget. From a training perspective, all of our officers have to undergo the same amount of training every year. Full-time, part-time, doesn't matter. They all have the same minimum 40 hours of required in-service training. Everybody has to take the same classes. On top of that, we have officers that take other specialized classes throughout the year. Some of that gets paid out of the training account as well. But just so you know, that at least 40 hours of that training is the same training that all officers have to go through. That changed 5-6 years ago with police reform, where we're now required. Everybody's required to do the same amount of training, same qualifications. If we started somebody tomorrow that wanted to work part-time, that's never been trained as a police officer, we have to send them to the full-time academy. We have to send them for a psychological exam, physical assessments, the whole 9 yards, the same as a regular full-time police officer would have to go through. So that's kind of the, just so you know, future. We've been talking about this for the last few years, 4 years or so. But this is we're gonna see some changes going forward, because a lot of these part-time police officers that went to the part-time academy years back, we've trained them up to the standard where they meet the one state standard now. So a lot of part-time employees are now taking full-time positions in other departments. So as departments get full-time positions, before they spend $15,000 to send somebody to the academy, they put it out and they say, hey, is there any former part-time officers that are now trained up to the full-time standard? Let's take them before we send somebody to the academy. So it's going to be an issue, because we're going to be losing part-time officers. We'll always still have at least some, but we're going to lose some because of that. And it's harder and harder to find part-time officers. Nobody wants to go to the 6-month academy, spend however many thousands of dollars, lose pay, all that stuff, just to work 1 shift a month or 2 shifts a month. So that's going to be kind of a budgetary thing. And it's one of the reasons why last year, 2 fiscal years ago. So we're in the 2nd fiscal year of hiring the 3rd full-time officer. So we always had 2. Now we hired 3, and we reduced the number of part-time shifts from 5 shifts a week to 3 shifts a week. So we reduced that numbers and took some of that money and put it towards the full-time position. I don't know if anybody has any questions as far as the structure or the police department or how we function or how things work. I always kind of say we're the necessary evil, because we don't build a lot of revenue. We're not a revenue building, entity. We have a job. We respond to calls when they come in. We enforce motor vehicle laws. We do our job as law enforcement, but that's not always making everybody happy, and it's not always bringing in money. So,
Jim, I have a question.
Sure.
On the personnel side, how do our officers, how is their pay comparable to surrounding communities per hour, what they make?
So that's a much larger topic right now.
Okay.
That's part of the salary study that we're looking at. Depending on how if we look at the current system that we're looking at, the salary study, there would be kind of a step system. The starting point, the minimum and maximum, where they would fall in between depends on where they get graded. So we're looking at grades and how each employee is going to be graded. So if they're graded at a level 4 versus grade 5 or grade 6, that's going to be a difference in pay as to where they're starting.
The job get graded, not get graded.
The job.
Are we bleeding officers to communities that pay more?
So currently we're at the low end of the pay. Some departments are looking at $30 an hour rates, and we're paying 23 and change. So it is kind of low with the step system. That's hopefully going to correct some of that if the positions get graded in the appropriate categories, and then depending on years of service and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of factors that go into play with that. But if we're just looking at current numbers without the salary study, I think we're a little bit lower than we should be. Historically, the police department has always been either at or below the median as far as the towns that we look at for studies. So we frequently have to, do a 2% increase or a 1.5% increase or a 3% increase just to get officers to the minimum for that median level. So we've never, I've been here 25 years, chief has 21 years, and I've never really seen it where, our police officer getting paid too much, let's bump them down. Never seen that. We're always below, looking at our full-time officers and my position. Currently, I think we're in the double digits, 17 to 22% below those median levels when you were looking at the county. So we're pretty low as far as the pay goes.
But it allows you that upward movement though. Because if you're high,
Yes.
where you gonna go?
Yes, you always got that hope of getting more.
You can always try.
It'll only take you 10 years to get there.
But the whole point of the compensation study is to right size all those positions that are under, and the police department is one that was identified.
I'm of the opinion that its employees are not, hourly employees are not paid enough. It's just like, as a small businessman, I can't get someone to show up for $20 an hour and they can barely sweep a floor. And then now you have an officer with lots of training making under $25 an hour. It's insane to me.
Yeah, 23.12 an hour,
It's insane.
Well,
to me.
25.
25 for full-time,
No, oh, yeah, you're right.
23.12.
They can't even afford a shopping trip to feed their family for a week at the grocery store. I don't think.
It's definitely a concern. It's definitely an issue.
Yeah.
How's
the revenue? How's the revenue on, moving violations? Do we know that?
That, I don't know that number.
I'm not asking you. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
I've
know
never
you
looked at
don't
that
know.
number. It comes in on the cherry sheet and I don't know if it's.
And even if you knew it, you wouldn't say it, so
Yeah.
I'm glad, but do we know it?
I don't have it off the top,
No.
on top of my head.
Well,
It shows up as fines and forfeitures, I think.
It does.
I know it's
Yeah,
not,
but then it's inclusive of others. but
Other
yeah,
stuff as well, yeah.
other things, yeah,
It's very, very hard to pinpoint a
Yeah.
number.
because it's just lumped in. But it is in the
Okay.
cherry sheet.
but it would be, it would be a good view to offset what that department costs. Just,
to know what typically is offset by.
right, and not only that, but going year after year, how do you compare the activity? You can say only once he's got shifts and, 24 hours or 12 hours. Doesn't matter. When you look at the number of tickets written, that shows activity. And, to me, something that I would want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. The other point to that I would speak to is just because we issue a citation doesn't mean it gets paid.
Okay.
So we may issue $60,000 worth of citations and only 20,000 of it gets paid.
Right.
Because it's up to the court to decide if these people contest it. It's up to the court to decide whether they feel they're responsible or not responsible. And sometimes it's, you're not responsible, this is only your first offense.
But we do know the
Minor
number of
things.
citations.
Yes,
So you can measure the number of citations 1 year versus the next, looking at a 5-year average. And see what the activity is like of our police force while they are in the cruiser. Just a thought.
I would also note, though, there is a philosophical debate there where police officers are not income driving. They're not there to go and pull people over and give them tickets. The actual preferential is, depending on the guidance that's given, is to actually have that conversation with the driver. If it is their first offense, you don't give the citation, you give a verbal warning. That is still activity, but it shouldn't necessarily be represented in a ticket, because we shouldn't be using the police department as a means to fine. You want to create you want to deter without impeding and costing.
Yeah, I think that
Well, I think that's true. And
your traffic enforcement and everything, you on one side and saying, oh, if the guy's not working, he should generate a certain amount of revenue, whatever, but also
when it's a Saturday and there's all the kids on Hurley Park and there's people everywhere and you guys are actively in that area, you're protecting all those kids, keeping them all safe. When you're on Long Plain Road during rush hour, the kids going to school, you're not writing any tickets, but you're protecting all those kids.
Absolutely.
That's more important to me than writing speed
Right.
tickets.
But that doesn't change year after year.
Yeah.
Those kind of scenarios tend to continue. And no one's asking that the police department become a revenue source. The point of the matter is there is revenue. We are here, we are taxpayers, and we should have an idea of what the activity is in the field by the police force that we have to pay 200, almost we're heading towards $300,000. So I think it's a viable question, and it's not one that, you know, we want to put into a position where we try to build on it or take away from it. It's just a fact. What are the facts?
And I do include some of that data in the annual town report. How many calls, we have 6,000 calls a year.
Yep,
How many citations or how many motor vehicle stops we have. I don't put in the numbers of, you know, citations versus written warnings versus verbal warnings versus who pays what. I don't put that in, just, you know, I mean, we stop thousands of cars a year. I'd like to say that it's making an impact. But again, I've been doing this job for almost 28 years and I haven't seen an impact yet. It gets worse. The more you stop people, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
I wish it was going the other direction.
Yeah.
It doesn't. As cars get faster, as they can handle better, people just drive faster.
Yeah.
We gotta go through stop signs. Those big red octagons, like,
Oh.
it's just-
Oh,
it is actually a stop
Is that what
sign.
that?
Yeah.
I'll just add one question. I'm not sure I followed the explanation of the number of cars versus officers at work. So we have two shifts, so there's one officer per shift. Each officer has a car, so when shift A stops, shift B starts with the other car, okay? But there's a third car. Where is that going?
So it's not as simple as A and B.
I had to make it that way for my.
Yeah, no, I get it. So during the week, I work the day shift along with another officer. So we overlap 3 days during the week. So 2 of those cars, car 1 and car 2, are being used every day. At least 1 day a week, most of the time, 2 days a week. We also have a clinician, a mental health clinician that patrols with an officer, co-responder with an officer outside of the regular patrol shift. So there's at least 2 days a week where we have all 3 cars running during the day. And then the evening officer comes in and he works. They overlap with the clinician till 8 o'clock at night. So 2 cars are being run, 3 cars being run during the day, 2 cars are being run at least till 8 o'clock at night. We've had, I can't tell you how many calls where all 3 of our cars have been there and the clinician's been there, and we've had everybody with every car that we've got going to calls.
Okay.
So it's not just 2 shifts, it's 2 shifts overlapping, plus the 1 shift that comes in at night, plus that clinician shift as well. And that clinician shift is usually using the detail car most of the time. Just because it's not one of the frontline cars. So we just have them use that because somebody else is usually using the frontline car.
Thanks for explaining.
Sure.
Any other questions, Chief? We've got more.
So as far as the budget goes, it's pretty simple. 3 increases. 1 for dues and supplies, $500. In the past, our copier maintenance agreement, which is roughly $500 a year, was paid out of town building accounts. Last couple of years, I think we've been trying to go towards, like, we have a separate building, so we want to know how much it costs to run that building. So we want to know how much it costs to run the police department building. So we're trying to get away from including things in town building accounts and stuff. So we're now paying that maintenance agreement, which is an additional $500 a year. So that's why that went up, that line went up for building maintenance, office supplies. That's what that was being paid out. So that's a $500 increase.
Gotcha.
I think everybody in the room probably knows electricity costs have gone up. So just added a little bit of funding for because we've been going over, last year we went over couple $100, I think, I don't have my glasses on, but maybe $300 that went over, so I made it $2,200 for electricity. And then the larger line item there, the $2,250 for uniforms. So again, talking about our 10 officers that we have, 3 of those officers have a clothing allowance of $750 currently, $750. Everybody else, all the other part-time officers have a clothing allowance or uniform allowance as of $250. So right now, if I went to the uniform supply store to buy a uniform, I could get 1 long sleeve shirt, 1 short sleeve shirt, and 1 pair of pants is going to cost more than $250. If I were to equip an officer coming into the department tomorrow, I couldn't do it for less than $1,000. So looking at that uniform allowance, it's not just the shirt, pants, and the long sleeve shirt, short sleeve shirt, and pants. It's also t-shirt. It's also gloves for the winter. It's also hats. It's rain jackets, patrol jackets, duty belt equipment. You know, if they break a holster is $250 for a
Jim, what
holster.
about bulletproof vests?
Bulletproof, well, they're not really bulletproof, but they're ballistic vests. Those run about $1,000 just for.
Separate line item, does everyone have their own, do they share them?
So what we did in the past is we actually seeded an account. So we put money into an account because we were getting reimbursement. Half of the reimbursement came from the state, half came from the federal government. So we were able to buy a vest, submit for reimbursement, and then we would get that money reimbursed. So the account always kept the money in there. There was maybe a 2-3 year period, which just happened to coincide with, a good portion of our officers that needed to get vests replaced. It's every 5 years. They needed to get vests replaced. The state didn't reimburse for their portion of it, so we only got reimbursed for half of it. And then that happened the second year. We had 2 other officers, I think it was, for the second time around. So it ended up bringing that seeded account down to 0. So we don't have any money left in that seeded account. We are due for purchasing vests, and I was going to talk with Pete and Dara and see if the state and the federal government are offering those refunds or the reimbursement, can we deficit spend for that year? Or do we have to reseed that account? That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. But there's a couple of us that are up for replacements.
So there's nothing in the budget here for them.
No, there isn't. No, nothing in the uniform allowance covers for that. But the vest itself is actually just 2 panels, a front and a back panel. Then there's the vest carrier, which you can wear a carrier underneath a shirt, or what you see a lot now is the external carriers, where we have the external carrier, which is the vest, and then you have more equipment on it. You have a taser, handcuffs, things like that are on the carrier. So officers have been using some of their clothing allowance to purchase items for the carrier. This is a different magazine holder or different handcuff case or whatever it might be.
So you don't, or do you have a number to fully equip, clothe a single officer in the field?
Right now, yes, because they already have their uniforms.
So what's that
a
number?
replacement? But if I were to bring somebody in tomorrow, I don't have a line in the budget that I could spend $1,000 to buy them all new equipment and a vest and the uniforms. It just, I mean, it's
So that's what you're saying, it's $1,000.
It'd be 2 with the bulletproof vest.
with the vest,
The
yeah,
vest would be $2,000.
to equip an officer in the door.
Do they wear the vest full time?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. It's part of our policy. It's mandatory.
Yep.
You gotta wear it. The good thing with the external carriers is if we're in the station working on a report or something, it's like a jacket. Take it off, set it to the side, do your report, and then put it back on before you go on the road. It's a little bit harder with the ones that you wear under a shirt, because you gotta take your duty belt off, you gotta take your shirt off, take the vest off, put everything back on. So the external carriers are more popular, because especially in the summer when it's 9,000 degrees and inside your vest, you just take it off and cool off a little bit while you're in the station.
Okay, and,
So just to give you the details of that. So that this number, the 2250 number gets our part-time officers from $250 worth of the uniform allowance to $500.
Okay,
And it gets our full-time officers from 750 to 1,000 per year. And obviously, full-time officers have more uniforms. You're wearing one uniform every day, all year.
yeah.
It's gonna be pretty bright.
Yeah. Worn out.
Yeah, pretty
So
well.
how will you fund the ballistic vest? if you
What's
have- How will you fund a ballistic vest?
So again, having to talk with the accountant, I'm talking with Pete to see if we can deficit spend in order to
Okay.
get the best, and then when the reimbursement comes in, it'll balance it back out.
So they really share the
Which is-
reimbursement.
With what we do for our reimbursable grants, we
Mhm.
have a special revenue account that goes into the red. Knowing that we will get a reimbursement. It's just about when we know if we can get the reimbursement before the beginning of September. That way we can bring it back into the black before we have to certify free cash.
And this is right around the time of the year. It's usually like late January, beginning of February, when they say whether or not they're gonna fund the reimbursements, whether there's money in, the state and federal budgets to do the reimbursements. So we're kind of looking at more than halfway through the fiscal year before we even know if they're gonna fund it. So
Are you on a revolving cycle to get them replaced?
that would be nice, but that was the whole point of like having the seated account, so we always had money to be able to just do that. Even if we ran into a situation where we didn't get the reimbursement, at least we'd have some money to buy that one random vest if we needed to, but that unfortunately didn't work out. So,
How you doing? We're running a wee bit over.
it's not my fault. It's Keith's fault.
Mr. Koski has fallen asleep twice.
I got.
He's back up, he's back up
I have to
again.
beat up you, which falls on him. How come you don't have a water bill at the police station?
I do,
It's not your thing.
$200 a year. It's part of the building maintenance.
So the library pays 100 and this building pays 750.
This one's gonna need. Plus this one's got sprinkler.
Okay.
Oh, we have a lot of
No
water
showers.
questions, so.
I'm still arguing the point that we don't spend $200 worth of water.
No.
Filling up our little
And
Sprinkler
Jane,
makes sense.
that 750 is the town office and the town hall.
Town
We
office and the town
yeah,
hall.
that town building is for both buildings.
Okay.
Let's go the right way.
Okay, so we're fully protected if we fully fund.
Yes.
That's what they wanna know at home. Okay, anything else?
Is this the time to discuss that next week? Next week, okay.
Next week.
That's it then.
Thank you very much. Hey,
Thank you.
before you go, how's the dog?
Seamus is great.
Okay,
Seamus is with me every day.
very good.
So, yeah,
Seamus is unfortunately, he's great at the police department, but when it comes to strangers,
you don't like, he's a therapy dog.
I know, but
Yeah.
I can't see, he's my therapy dog. Essentially. He's a therapy dog that needs a therapy dog. We're still working on it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, chief.
All right.
Have a great
Have a
night.
great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so last but not least, oh my gosh. Good
Wayne, you got 5 minutes.
You got 5 minutes.
Okay.
You've been so patient.
Okay. Hey, let me tell you. Burley Field is looking really good. I see you down there working. Yeah, here it's getting all the time. Yeah. Looking good. Okay, we're at the very end.
The very end.
Tab 15.
Tab 15. Enterprise Fund. Here we go. Okay, so, we have some new individuals here. Are we familiar with the enterprise fund and what an enterprise fund is, especially in relation to the water department? In essence, the users of the water department pay for that department completely through whatever they're charged. We serve as an oversight for those individuals relative to, the finances. So, you know, we're asking Pete, Wayne, sorry. Okay, so we're asking the same kind of questions we would ask anyone, in regards to the numbers. So is there something you'd like to share with us on regarding?
The numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a biggie. Well, I guess you call it a huge increase. In the overall budget, almost everything went up, a couple of things went down, though.
Yeah.
It's mainly because we needed a year, there's a lot of stuff we should have did this year, but we didn't do, because we needed that year of the new rates to go in effect.
Oh,
Now that we got a new,
yeah.
year's worth of that.
Mhm.
Now we know how much money there is coming in from that, so now we can go back and do all these things.
And that increase was what, from what had been for 20 years up to,
It's,
was it like 11?
no, so it went from just charging, how do you want to call it, for 1,000 gallons of water and,
Base rate.
yeah, from just, the only thing the town there, the water permit used to charge was X amount for the water use. Now they're more in line with, or we are, whatever you want to call it, with every other department around, where there's more than, you get charged more than just the water use.
Okay.
So in other words, what it does is like all the additional charges, so the water use covers the budget. The additional charges covers the capital expenses and the upkeep, maintenance to the system.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving forward, we have no more debt, that's gone.
Yeah, no, we still,
25 grand.
yeah, every year, we got that we're in,
Okay,
let's see, it's 5 years. I think we have another 15 years of that. I think we're 5 years into the 20 years.
that's not going anywhere. Okay.
No, not soon.
So in essence, looking at this,
Is that in your book?
No,
Well, that's why then maybe I won't have to go line by line.
great.
Huh?
Your own material. This is just.
Well, I mean, I can go line by line, but that's the plan for the budget.
let's just hit the increases and just speak to them.
That's like every line.
That's not.
Well, there's a whole bunch of zeros following.
Yeah,
so
in
it's
general
a separate
expenses,
thing.
you did adjustment. That's really your home area.
Right. Which, if you look at that, that really is.
So,
Do you want me to go line by line stuff?
no, I don't believe we have to do that.
Increase, decrease.
I just want to know that your projected expenses are going to be covered by your projected income.
Well, that's the next tab.
Yes, no,
That would be,
no,
that's,
that's just a general statement.
yeah, that's our budget, what we're asking for. That's what
Yep.
we're projecting to bring in. That's what'll go into. I can't remember what it's called. The savings account.
Yeah. So it's an extra
You're in a
40
nice
grand,
Huh?
extra 40. Revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's talk about.
yeah.
Town hall, stabilization fund.
Yeah,
capital
I don't know.
improvement fund, Something like that. Have you talked to Dara about what to call it?
No, I haven't seen her yet.
It's covered by the revenue.
Yeah, the revenue.
There's a $40,000
Surplus.
surplus
Oh.
that goes toward apparently capital.
Yeah, I can go line by line if you want and explain it, but.
No, it's pros. I can have them sure.
What?
Egypt Road?
That's one of our first capital things are having. Oh, I don't know. This year. I think maybe next year, because no matter what, it's gonna cut. If we can't find the 800 or $1 million to do it, you know, what I mean, it's gonna mean taking the loan out again.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions they would like to bring up at this point in time? Doesn't look like it's a very increase in,
No, I think it's a good
No,
thing.
it
They
is,
got
yeah.
a $40,000 surplus to put towards capital and maintenance and
yeah,
whatever that
absolutely.
hasn't been there before.
Right.
So
We were
that's-
shooting with the, when we did the rates and made the rates, we were shooting for $50,000 to put away.
Yep.
Which we're close. It's gonna be like 44, 45.
Very good.
It was close.
All right.
Paul, the one question I had
Yep.
is this overhead portion.
Yes, that's,
Do we, it's showing using the same numbers as last year, but that's not accurate because it should actually be based on a percentage of those different budgets.
right.
Do we year to year always do 2% on select board, 3% on town buildings, or does that get adjusted? How is that determined?
That's an excellent question. And, I'm unclear how we,
I don't know, they just always give me a number.
what he needs.
What's that?
Brian used to just put a number in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Brian,
And I got
he
nothing.
really didn't deal with that.
And there was never any discussion of making any adjustments to the percentage,
No.
not that I'm recommending it.
No.
There may be a reason why you determined 4.4 on Medicare, but 8% on property liability.
So is that of the total operating budget for that account?
Yeah, so essentially what we do is, water subsidizes, or for lack of a better word, a portion of each of those buckets.
But I'm guessing that somebody had, like, it's 8% maybe because of the. Like, it's covered by the town policy. And at
Could
some point,
be,
someone
and
figured out that it was
8%
8% of
The cost
the
yeah,
cost was due to the.
yeah.
I mean, I just, that wherever that number came from, it originally at least had some
Some
basis
method,
in.
yeah.
But currently it's all level funded. So
Well, that's the
these numbers
point.
will
Yeah, we didn't
They're
have,
all gonna have to be revised.
They will all be revised for COLA, when the COLA number. comes.
And they're gonna be revised because they're not actually referencing the current budget
Oh,
of each of
okay.
those
Yeah, yeah.
buckets right now, they're the previous year.
School is in a different section, but that means it will erode the 40K buffer, or the 40K buffer stays and the rate goes up even higher.
no,
It will likely erode it, yes.
That would be a good thing.
no, the buffer, no, it won't touch none of the leftover.
Because the overhead numbers are low right now because they're
Right.
based on last year's budget total, not the current budget total, so.
Right, but there's an extra, because I didn't know that number, there's an extra $10,000 in the budget.
Then you're hiding from us.
No, it's under, what did we end up calling it, finally?
Found money.
Yeah, they're capital projects for things that we didn't know,
Capital's not.
Oh, over here on this sheet.
yeah.
Oh. And I.
10K.
No, it's not.
Here, keep it.
See, you want this one? You want mine?
Okay.
Point of the 40K buffer will reduce by whatever allocation of these percentages.
Yeah, if those numbers go up, then.
Yeah.
This total, it'll be
Yeah.
more than the 313.
Expenses will go up, so the surplus will go down.
Yeah, so essentially, if we have a general
No, because we won't
budget
have
increase
that.
of 3%, let's say, then the overhead will.
Yeah, I
increase
guess
by
you could say
3%,
that.
Yeah.
because it represents.
I get what
the
you're
overall budget,
Right,
but that's a
It'd
really
be de
rough.
minimis anyway,
Yeah.
60 grand. 1,800
It's gonna be not that.
It won't
Yeah.
be simple.
Got it.
And the budget numbers are projections anyway, and some will fall short and some.
We will wait for COLA. And then bring it all back in. Anything else? Any other questions? We're good. Thank you very much. The water is delicious as always. Very tasty. You wouldn't know.
You have a
No, we
will.
wouldn't. Yeah, some of us would, well, no, we're not. Well, in a way, we are.
Yeah, so do I.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, the rest of the agenda for the finance committee will be matriculated to another date and time.
Well, there is the discussion on the financial warrant articles in both the special and the annual town meeting, if the board would like to review.
You need that now?
We
Okay,
can still do those.
okay, if you need it now, then we'll do it.
But it's, yeah,
Special town meeting
Let's get it done.
earlier. The special town meeting is earlier.
Yeah, so we just need to deal with special.
we could do it, but yeah, we could just do special if you want to do that one, and then we can vote on the annual one.
Yeah, let's just do the special.
Does the select board want to adjourn their meeting first, or are we?
We've already called our meeting to order, so.
It looks like we're,
To adjourn it.
Adjourn.
oh, okay.
If you wanted to.
If you wanted to, you don't have to, it's on the next set for.
Well,
Do we need
It
to
says to
approve?
review and discuss
Oh,
miscellaneous.
sorry, I figured down below.
Do we need to approve the special town meeting warrant tonight?
Sorry, what?
Do we need to approve the special town meeting warrant tonight?
You're not doing that.
We're not doing that tonight.
I think that's not.
That, you're doing
Right,
that
right, just,
next week is when you finalize and close the warrant discussion. I will just note for the select board, but also FinCom, if you're only gonna vote on special town meeting articles, there was a request or a recommendation from the CPC to move the capital project requests from the annual to the special, just because they already have the funds allocated, they already have them appropriated, and they just want those projects started before July 1. So if we could move those two articles, which was the library and the dock. So those two articles could move on here. We'd get 3 articles on special town.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be like,
What's that?
Those are articles 15 and 16 on the annual to move to special.
Correct.
Okay.
Pete, do you need the finance committee to sign off on anything?
Only the Article 1, because Articles 15 and 16, I believe, the capital, the CPA ones, the FinCom does not vote on. Yeah, you don't vote on the CPA uses, you just would vote on the Article 1 of the special town meeting, which is approving the use of free cash to pay these two prior year bills.
Okay. For a total of $1,345.68. You wanna just give a quick little
Sure.
explanation?
The Don's plumbing bill was for work done at the town hall. That work was done in May and June of last year, which was in the prior fiscal year. We did not receive an invoice until November, I think it was.
It was dated.
And it was dated wrong. It was dated early. The work was actually in the prior year. Dara said there was no way for us to do it other than as a prior year bill. And then the other one from KP Law was an invoice that you can see, that is not a typo. It was a bill from 2023 that they never submitted to the town. They found it in their records. It's a small dollar amount, so they're just trying to get us caught up.
Wow.
I should think they could have.
Times it's tough for
Right.
KP
I
Law.
know, right?
Absorb
Absorb it.
Don't go to that.
Yeah, really. Okay, very good. Any questions about either one of these? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the $1,345.68 for 2 prior bills from Don's Plumbing and KP Law EC? Do I have
Second.
second? All those in favor? We'll stop. We gotta go.
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're good.
I missed the select board voting on these at another meeting.
You'll do those next week.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn the select board.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're to adjourn the finance committee. All those in favor?
Aye.